Hey, welcome back to Steve Horvath Fishing. Aside from being devastatingly handsome, I'm also pretty dumb, so I have a cheat sheet with me for doing this video. And here's the topic. And I'm going to do several videos on it, and it's called Making Money in the Fishing Industry. I've lived a lot of my life making money from the fishing industry, and I have no problem telling you, not exactly what I made, but in roundabout numbers, also how you can make money or not make money like I did a few times. So let's go. I'm going to start with the business that we're currently in, commercial lobster fishing. I've done it off and on since I was in 7th grade. I started working on commercial boats at about 14 years old. So, what's a commercial lobster fisherman make? And I want to break it down between the guy that owns the boat and works on a boat and the guy that does the smallest job on a boat. Okay, for our purposes, we're going to have 3 people on a boat. Person number 1 is the captain. He is also the boat owner. Person number 2 is called the stern man. He's the guy that takes and stacks up the traps and throws them off the back of the boat and helps out number 3, who is the bander. Basically, what he does is he puts rubber bands on the lobsters, measures them, makes sure they're legal, and that's about it. It's busy work, but it needs to be done. It's not highly technical, so the guy doesn't make a ton of money, but it's a job on a boat. So, let's say that the boat gets to sail to catch lobsters 100 days a year. Yeah, I know there's 365, but we've got an entire month where we're not allowed to fish. We've got about 4 months that you're lucky to get out once a week because of weather. The rest of the year, weather's better, so maybe we get out 2 or 3 or 4 times a week at the most, okay? So we're going with 100 trips a year. Let's say that we catch 200 pounds of lobsters per trip. Now, if you go in the supermarket and buy them at 12 bucks a pound, that's a lot of money. Truth is, we don't get paid nearly that much. If we average $7 a pound for our catch throughout the entire year, that's pretty good. So, instead of me just saying that's a lot of lobsters, 100 trips at 200 pounds a trip is 20,000 pounds of lobsters. 10 tons, okay? That's a good amount of lobsters. So 20,000 pounds of lobsters at $7 a pound is $140,000. Congratulations, you just made 140 grand. You're going to split it up between a couple other guys. That's a pretty good living. I know, people are going to be lining up. Problem is, there's expenses. And expenses are expensive. So let's look at those expenses. You're going to burn about $30,000 in fuel. That's a lot of money. 30 grand off the top. Gone. You need a spot to park your boat. They're not cheap. In my area, it's about $4,000 a year. Our money's shrinking quickly. Probably going to spend about $2,000 on ice to keep the lobsters cold. Not a lot of money, but it's money. It's cost. It comes out of the business. And you're going to spend about $30,000 in lobster bait. Lobster bait is not free, or most of it isn't free. Sometimes you can get some dead fish off of somebody, or a seafood market might be cutting up the fish, and you can get them for almost nothing, but you got to give the guy something for keeping them. So we're looking at about $30,000 a year just for bait, dead fish. That's a lot of money. Our costs to do that is $66,000 a year. That's a big chunk of your $140,000. That leaves us with $84,000. Now, say your deckhand is a 20% man. That 20% is after expenses, not before expenses. Okay? So your deck man for working 100 days a year, and that's not a lot of days a year to work, so per day it's decent money, but he makes $16,800 based on catching 20,000 pounds. Now, If you catch twice that in a year, you're doing pretty good as a deck man. You're going to make 30 grand and you're only going to work 100 days a year. And if you've got some type of side hustle, you can easily make another 20, 30 grand, put you somewhere around 50 grand. But on an average year, let's say you're making 16.8. You got to fill that in somewhere. Now, our guy putting the rubber bands on, 100 trips, he's making 10 grand. 10 grand to work 100 days. It's not a whole lot of money. The thing is, with costs, that brings your profit down to 56 grand, 56,800 to be exact, for working 100 days on the water. I mean, 56.8 is nothing to sneeze at. There's a lot of people that make less than 56.8. But here's the problem. Unless you paid for your boat in cash, you've got a boat payment. I've got no idea what you spent on the boat. You might have got the boat and the licenses and stuff for 50 grand. And you might have spent 400 grand. It all depends upon the boat and the licenses. Now, what are your possible other costs that you can incur? Well, you can lose lobster traps. A new lobster trap is about 150 bucks. So if you lose 100 of them, that's a big chunk of change. How about your boat payment that we went over? That's added to those possible lost traps. And what about maintenance and breakdowns? Stuff like that's bound to happen. That comes out at that $56,000. So as you can see, having a poor to average year as a lobster fisherman, you're not going to make a ton of money. But it's about the lifestyle. You can get by. You're not going to be rich. You're not going to be famous. But in a good year, you can make a lot more than that. Remember, we're not on the Bering Sea running a crab boat. We're not catching millions of dollars of fish. In a good year, yeah, maybe you bring in 250,000 gross. But in an average year, I probably gave you the breakdown. And that's what you got to live on. Hey, for Steve Horvath Fishing, this is part 1 on our series of the finances of making money fishing.